Hi, welcome. In this video, this is part two of my series talking about trainers who are actually doing it right. And what's the right part? The right part is understanding what defines training once a relationship problem is already happening between a dog and owner. So again, when I talk about a relationship problem, that's the connecting the dots part by way, again, of following the path of a intervention versus approaching training as a learning based exercise and using treats, using something to motivate a response without considering, okay, why that would be a problem by way again of a relationship problem and the issue about superficial responses. And again, this is why so many, dog owners end up, with a bad picture, okay, in the end, even after investing time, money, getting their certificate only to discover that they're still dealing with a unresolved relationship problem. So again, when I talk about, the level of engagement, okay, at the very beginning, it's about at the social level bringing those two core ingredients into the picture by way of again influence and control to establish change. When I talk about influence and control being reconciled, it's reconciled through a intentional interaction based approach that speaks the right language, okay, provides clarity to the dog understanding intent, okay, by way again, how you're interacting, how the leash is used, and coming into agreement with these interactions, which again changes the perception of dogs the right way, which leads to again changing the dog's overall decision making process and therefore diminishment of unwanted behavioral issues. So again, understand the majority of trainers out there are not approaching it that way. So in terms of change itself, understand it's worse than just the roll of the dice because understand these trainers are looking at just superficial responses and making inherently flawed assumptions at that level. Because again, talking about the criteria to actually reveal the truth is not part of their approach that way in an intentional way. Okay, it does not reconcile those core ingredients in a way that's going to reveal or change in a way in which they can actually discern it. Okay, so again, they're all operating off of appearances, and that's where appearances get people into a lot of trouble. Now, again, that's why I highlight again, we're talking about, again, I focus a lot on the bad, okay, on my videos. So it's great to be able to focus on the good. And these two trainers here over in Russia, it's actually remarkable, okay, to me when I see their approach, when I see how they're interacting, you can tell they're at a very high level and it's great seeing it. So I encourage anyone watching my content is to spend some time over there because it's helpful to listen to or see other trainers talk about it because sometimes they may be wording things a little differently, which can help to provide more clarity. Okay, because one of the things I complaints I get, but I understand these complaints are coming from the established dog training community, is about this whole thing about not understanding. But what I would suggest is a lot of the not understanding part is this problem with just holding on to this idea and not willing to let it go. Okay, so it's still there's no kind of wiggle room here. There's no kind of mixture of saying, well, I can bring some of Dale's stuff in and still be a balanced dog trainer. Actually, it doesn't work that way. Okay, it does not. Okay, it's a totally different approach in a good way. It answers the questions. It provides clarity. So I encourage you to check out my website, my YouTube channel. I have lots of free content, but I also have additional content as well for those who really want to invest in the system. Understanding that this is a complete system. Now, I'm saying that without trophies in the background. Okay. This is a complete system. It answers all the questions. It's the original source system. Okay. So it's doesn't follow some other system. Of course, you have to start somewhere. But that somewhere should, motivate you to ask more questions. Okay, understand. That's why I put out lots of videos about all the controversies. Those should motivate anyone who's really seeking to understand to say, hold on here a second. Why are all these bad things happening over and over again? Like there's something wrong here. And there is. And understand the trainers, the already established trainers, they've already signed the contract. Okay, many of them are not gonna admit there's a problem because they're making money off of this appearance based approach. And so this sets in motion all the blame shifting on the dogs, all the problems you're seeing, all the infighting. Understand all of it is a package deal. It goes along with aligning yourself with this superficial idea. Okay, I talk about that. But again, there's lots of content on that as well. You can go watch my Flipping the Script series. It's information based. So I try my best to avoid cheap shots. Okay, even though these trainers that are really come on to into my social media, they're all about the cheap shots and the personal attacks. I can't answer what I call the question of the century, related to what is the criteria that these trainers are using to establish that perceptions of dogs are changing the right way within the framework of response. They can't answer that, even though that's what they're doing. Okay, they're assuming, and the assumptions are wrong more often than not. Because again, understand it's all appearance based. So the system of training is a complete system. It's not based on appearances. It's based on knowing. Okay, you want to know. And so again, if you are a dog owner, I would encourage you to pay attention to the information I put out. If you're a dog trainer and you're being honest with yourself, and you're looking around seeing all the problems, this system's for you. Okay. And again, the trainer here actually was, I mentioned this, a balanced dog trainer at a very high level. He took the $10,000, $15,000 play-based course. You know, he talks about that. He does it in a way he's like not being just like hypercritical. He's just saying he didn't find the answers there, and everywhere else he looked. And that's the thing. But again, you have to, as an individual, you have to be motivated. You know, before you sign that I'm a balanced dog trainer contract and just start to shove stuff off and ignore the problems, you have to want to go deeper and know. Okay. So here, let's play some more of this again. Last video is talking about this whole off leash transition, you know, and I talk about that. We get there. Okay. I've had some trainers come on going absolutely bananas about, where's the off leash dog? And it's so ridiculous to me. It's like their thinking is all twisted completely upside down. It's like, well, if it's about, okay, establishing the right picture, then the question is, what are you going to see? Like, are you going to you see a rush forward like that? No, you're going to see the actual process to establish that. So it's incredible to me. These trainers, it's like, and then when they keep talking, it makes me realize no wonder these trainers are so just turned over to this stuff. It's like they cannot shake loose or think different. And it's ridiculous considering the problems and their methods, okay, are have so many holes in it. You could run a transport truck through it, but they're feeding into it. They have people that elevate them, and so that's the problem. Pride, ego, it's just out of control. It's just incredible to me what's going on in dog training world. I'm actually really taken back by the lack of critical thinking and just the depth of the issue problem with these trainers. I mean, it's unbelievable. But let's focus here. Let's play some more of this again. It's a great video here. I'm going to be doing a series on a couple videos put out by Canine Staya. They put out last couple of videos. All the videos are great, but last two really talk a lot about the process.
Especially since they already know from previous experience that they can pull the leash and bolt forward, and there will always be a sort of conflict here. That is why I immediately turn the dog around, either with their back to the trigger or slightly to the side. And by switching their focus, I start actively engaging them with me.
What? I think I saw the push-pull there. Okay. So so she did and you saw her hand come up to, again, top of the push-pull. So the push-pull is the shoulder blade. You're pushing down, okay, slightly on the lower neck, back, shoulder blade area of the dog. See her hand right here?
Focus.
And
I start.
see, and then it's pulling up a little bit at the same time. It's not meant to like choke the dog or anything like that. What it does is it creates some more, influence, okay, over the mind of the dog. It generates more focus, okay, in that moment. It's like part of the conversation. So it's like talk about fading in, okay. So it fades you in. So the tangible thing that happens is you'll see the dog's head turn slightly inward, and sometimes even look right up in your eyes. It creates that type of, and I call it like an I own moment. So there's a sequence I go through. And if I'm doing like what's called the one-step method, and you hear, go watch Mark DeBose. He's talking about the one-step method in his recent video. One-step method really is very intentional. It's a sequence that you go through, and it represents that language of talk, not verbal language, but the language of the method. Okay, the dog understanding intent, clarity, right? The core ingredients are reconciled. It generates focus onto you. Starts to all those moments are your building blocks of change by way of as the moments build on top of each other, they begin to change the dog's overall decision making process. So the moments themselves represent change, but then they start to those are your building blocks. And so over time, right, the method decreases, it diminishes. Okay, so you're still in communication with the dog. There's still some influence and control happening, but it's not as intentional as it is once you're, say, in the middle of a relationship problem. You want to be very intentional with really generating, change by way of, the push pull method comes together. So, and the push pull method works off of for socialization. It's its own standalone method at the same time. It's a replacement for, say, counter conditioning. Okay, so what it does is it brings those core ingredients in. The dog is agreeable to being brought under control, or say going to the vets or groomers where there's more control happening, more influence happening in a more kind of specific way. Well, the push pull counterbalances that. Okay, it brings the focus onto the owner. So as you're doing, say, the push and pull, as your dog is getting, say, you know, uh, vaccination, something happening, grooming, it really does. It changes the dog's focus, right? Doesn't mean that you shouldn't still say have a dog with a muzzle on, but if you try that push pull method, it's incredible. Okay, and I show it on my YouTube channel. If you look at the clipping nails video with Christian Hirschman, who I profiled. Christian came down just a couple of days ago and assisted in training, and Christian is very insightful, great trainer. He went through all my courses. He went through the introductory course, the advanced course, the dog trainer certification course here in Florida, 7 days, very intensive. And he went through all of it and came out on the other side, understanding all of it. Okay, I cover a lot of ground. It's still like an entry point. This is why he came down as part of it. I mean, it's like the support thing, right? Coming down, still instructing with me, being able to mentor, and he's there like 4 hours, like with a dog owner, dog, and those things happen. That's all part of it. Okay, it's just getting that support. So if you go through the program, say you're not from Florida, you'd be able to see it through, say, FaceTime as I'm doing certain things. You'll be able to kind of look in and have that as well. So it's a great opportunity. I understand that, in terms of a trainer of the system, there's that long term support that's all included. Okay, it's just part of it as you develop over time. And so the dog training certification course, that's like an entry point. It's going to get you in a really good place, but again, you want to keep moving forward. That's the way to do it. So I encourage you, if you're interested in that, check out my website. It's all there, all the information.
Actively engaging them with me.
So again, see, so she did the push pull. That's like you want to do. That's part of the conversation with the dog. And what it does is when you launch into the down, the push and pull helps drop a couple of dominoes in the dog's mind first, and your hand placement's already there to follow through and apply more influence. Okay, when I say more, it's not more in as it relates to physical force that way. So you're not trying to get in a battle with the dog. I understand this is all about the mind of the dog. So when you do the push pull, what that does, it drops a couple of dominoes, and then if at that moment you're going to follow through with the down, you just lean. It's all body weight. You just lean your body in. You lock your elbow. You lean, and you just are patient. Okay, you're not trying to overly, get into a battle or force the dog. Okay, in fact, what happens a couple things here to consider. What happens is, if you're dealing with a dog that's aggressive or has a lot of control issues, I'll skip that step. I won't try to do the down for a couple, 2 or 3 days. If you watch my videos, you'll see this in the board and train process for a reason. Okay, it's going to happen, but you don't want to trigger high challenge with the dog. You don't want to because it may be reasonable within the context of the technique, but it's going to be very unreasonable to a dog that's already gained a lot of control. So it's about doing it smart. Okay, what we're doing, we're breaking the dog's mind down. I say breaking down in a good way. Okay, we're transitioning the roles over. We're taking the stress off the dog. So the push pull helps to drop a couple dominoes, but you have to make sure you complete that first. You don't just let that wash into the down pressure. So it's like push pull, it's like language, and then you hesitate for a second, your hands right there, and then you start to apply, um, some more, just influence through body weight, and see if the dog is going to be agreeable to the down. Dog understanding intent. Understand. So as you're pushing directionally, right, the dog understands to the amount of influence happening where you want them to go. Understand. This system, how it kind of lines everything up. It's very different that way, but it brings the commands, okay? It brings the commands into the picture in a way that they're meaningful now. What you're doing is you're rebuilding bridges here. Okay, you're starting to establish the right foundation. So you're not using verbal language, which is very challenging for people. Like, I don't understand how can the dog you not use words? Well, intent. The dog understands through how you're moving, how you're using the leash, how you're asserting influence control, how everything is funneling, right? You see other trainers out there like the dog daddy. Okay, he says these trainers are moving erratic, like they're moving here, moving there, they're moving around their body. That's not it. In fact, that's confusing to the dog. Okay, it's very specific to how your body moves. The dog understands it. Therefore, the dog's gonna be more real. The dog understands the 10. Okay, Dale's moving 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You're mixing up a little bit so the dog doesn't start card counting you, as I call it. But there's little things there I go through with people to help them understand how to really get dialed into a dog's state of mind. Okay. But here, she the push and pull. So it doesn't mean that you always do the down in those moments. Okay. You add those in there at the right time. Again, with some dogs, you're not going to do it at all for a couple of days. But again, I encourage you, if you're wanting to do my method, is to do a consult. Don't just start to do certain things on your own. It can be you put yourself in a position because it's definitely you want to make sure it's safe for you. Use the muzzle. You don't want to get bitten. Okay, understand that there's a system here. When I put out my method, you need professional help. Don't do this on your own. Okay, I would really encourage you to contact me and don't be putting, it's like disclaimer time. Okay, don't do the method. It's at your own risk, but I would suggest don't be doing the certain methods I'm talking about. You know, um, just be aware. Okay, it's very effective, but the language itself through the method, it has to be reconciled and clarity needs to be there. And so that's what people need because you might be thinking you're doing something the right way, and it may not be. And the dog is gonna, especially when you're dealing with some dogs that are aggressive. Okay, you get in that level, seek professional help. When I say professional help, the 5 trainers I talked about, not these other trainers. Okay, this is a very specific system. Okay, the 5 trainers I talked about, those are the ones to contact, but more so like Christian Hirschman. People have officially gone through the course. Okay, there's other people out there that are dialed in a little bit. Still, the course itself, the courses they provide just specific information with all the methods because you could be doing something like I just mentioned with the push pull and how it's done and knowing when to do it, when not to do it. And there's different things like that. There's some variances, there's some accommodation, there's things that you have to add on depending on the dog and the situation. So I just want to mention that before we move ahead. So here it's almost 20 minutes. So we'll leave us here, part two. Again, this is helpful me go through because I'll be able to talk about a lot of my method more so than in other videos where I'm kind of just critiquing. But here, this is about really kind of maybe putting a little more information for people. If you're thinking about this system, things to consider or think about, but contact. I mean, that's the big takeaway. If you have questions, contact me. I got lots of training options. There's the member area. You can go in there and dive deep into that area. There's all sorts of extra content. That's where Mark DeBose, spent a lot of his time in my member area. There's a wealth of information in there. So there's lots of options. You can check them out. Thanks for watching. I'll be doing part 3 here shortly.